On the 4th of March, the House of Keys will choose 4 people to become members of the Legislative Council. Prior to that vote, Agenda and Perspective will be speaking with all the candidates so that you can find out more about the people that hope to become national politicians. After the 6 p.m. news, we'll hear from Mark Cleater, but first, businessman Barry Duncan.
So, 55 years of age, I have 3 children here. I have one other son who lives in Southend, works in insurance in London. Where am I from? Originally from the Wirral. Mum and dad. Mum was a dinner lady. My dad was a fireman. Went to Wirral Grammar School until 16. Left the grammar school at 16. Went on a youth training scheme. £23 a week was the total amount, and of which £15 went to the rent. Went into building society insurance to try and find out what I wanted to do, but ultimately at that stage I wanted to be a policeman. So at 18 I left my mum's cotton wool on the Wirral and I went down to London. I went to Leytonstone and then became a policeman for the next 10 years, of which it was varied. Obviously you do 2 years as a probationer. From there you go into uniform patrol, and from there you decide where you want to be, where your career goes. For me, I got led in different directions. I was a mentor to the younger police officers after I came out for 2 years. I then went into the crime squad, burglary squad, trainee detective, but I kind of got led in a completely different direction where I became an undercover police officer for SO10, and for that I did 6 years of many, shall we say, varied positions as an undercover officer. One probably I could talk about is that we, as a level 2 buyer, as they called it, we cleaned up King's Cross train station, the forecourt at the front of the King's Cross train station, where there was drugs was rife. It was an epidemic of robberies, thefts, drugs dealing, muggings, and we were sent in as drugs buyers, for want of a better word. I had a lovely Scouse accent at the time. I was very skinny at the time as well. I could make myself look like a user. And a funny story was, I came out of Tottenham Court Road to then go into King's Cross, and there was a beggar outside of the train station who said, "Have you got any money?" And I said, "I haven't, I've got some cigarettes." And he said, "No mate, you look as if you need these cigarettes more than me," and actually gave me the cigarettes back. However, we did an amazing job to clean up King's Cross, and if you go to King's Cross now, you'll see how that progressed. And that's one I can talk about. There were many others that we got involved in. After 10 years dealing with that kind of thing, I had a colleague also that was shot dead. It's his 30th anniversary coming up in April. I think there's a service for the 30 years. I didn't become disillusioned, but it was hard work for a young guy, 18, now only 28, to have seen and dealt with what we saw and dealt with through the 80s and into the 90s. And pure by chance, through a personal relationship, I met somebody who was working in the industry that I've now have been in for the last 25 plus years. Where was I based there? It was very much East London. So Ilford, which is obviously classed as Essex, but East London. I came out of that, stayed within the Essex area, Southend, got married, had my son, who's now 24, and I got into what has now been my life for the last 25 years, which is experiential marketing. And as you quite know, marketing covers a multitude and a wide range of skills, shall we say. But I built a business from scratch. My very first business, I was in a workshop in Battersea. My chair was Phileas Fogg crisp boxes. My table was Phileas Fogg crisp boxes, so you can guess what promotion I was doing. My fax machine was the old school fax machine with the perforated holes in the side that never worked, and my computer was a computer that you couldn't even change the fonts or the size of the fonts. So it was a humbling experience to start my business. I started my business with zero cash. From that beginning, I went on to be a pioneer of experiential marketing. What does that mean? We were very much below the line, so we provide staff for the big brands to do everything face to face. Some of the biggest clients: Coca-Cola, Unilever, Sony, Samsung, EMC Squared, Heineken, all of the InBev, all of the big alcohol brands. Biggest campaign I ever did was 2002, I guess, the year 2001, 2002. From the 1st of January to the 4th of January, my team of staff, 323, handed out 4 million mini cans of Coke, lime and lemon. It was huge, and we built barrel boy type stands outside train stations across the UK, where they just handed out at the optimal temperature for the drink. They handed out these drinks. It was the biggest thing ever. But for that, obviously, we had to find the staff, interview the staff, and employ the staff. And for that, the client actually wanted to speak to every individual staff member to make sure they were the right fit. And that happened. So that was a Christmas that was wasted. But some of the joy from some of the projects I've dealt with is I could write a book. I could definitely write a book from start to finish. Where did it go? It went bigger and bigger. I had an office of 40 people. As always in business, as you would know, you have your ups and downs. 2008, huge crash. I come out of it, I survived it just, and had to literally reinvent, restart. But because of the reputation, it was very easy to pick up clients. And when I say clients, we're talking projects that could be worth £200 or projects that could be worth £5 million. And from that, obviously, and this is where we go into the skill set, from that you'd have to put your pitch together. You'd have to go and pitch. You'd have to work out the finance side of it. You'd have to find the staff. You'd have to come out with the creative. You'd have to come out with the logistics side of it. You'd have to negotiate the contracts, which was key at that stage, because never trust the contract that's given to you by a blue chip company, because it always favours them. So you had to then learn, and everything to the point we're at now, I've taught myself. But also I like to learn from other people. It doesn't matter who it is. Every day I look at learning, and that's what's made me successful up until this day. The hardest part of everything, you think about the police years, about the building of the business, COVID. I don't know whether it's just me, but it's as if we'll forget that part of our lives happened. It was a huge effect on my business. At that stage, my biggest client was a travel, retail and duty-free client, global. So I could see already, I see you raise your eyebrows there, Phil. Yeah, I mean, that changed me more than me leaving my mum and dad at 18 and joining the police, to go through COVID and come out of that after 2 years, still having staff in countries around the world that weren't able to, they didn't go into the like the ERTA or the furlough system, the ERTA being the Spanish system. I had to help them out. I had to make big decisions. As the only person running that company, I had to make decisions that would either help or not help people's lives during that COVID time. And I have to be honest, and I'll sit here, it has taken a massive effect on how I view everything from now on, or certainly from then until now. So that's a very brief overview. When did I come here? 2010. Why did I come here? I've met a Manx girl. I'm looking at the weather outside. I wish it was from Barbados or something like that, but I met a Manx girl. And obviously I was travelling a lot. We'd had a baby early on in 2006. If I get that wrong, she'll shoot me. And her father wasn't very well here, and it was a big decision. It's like, look, you're travelling. I'd like to go and see the rest of him for his time here, and come with me. And her advice in 2010 was, you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. And within 3 weeks of me being here, I got into football. I pulled on the Union Mills shirt as a vet. I then snuck over to the Laxey side, and then from there on in, I've been a part of the Laxey community ever since. I've taken the kids from age 5. I'm now seeing them going into jobs, into universities, to America, to football in universities over there, to see them passing the driving test. So I've been through that community feel for LegCo. I'm very close to LegCo. I'm assistant manager and head coach for LegCo senior team. I'll tell you a quick little story about Peter Greenhill. Yesterday, he refereed our game yesterday, so him and I had a chat yesterday as well. I also help with the girls under 12s team, under 12s, under 14s, and also I'm a part of the Centre of Excellence coaching team for the Isle of Man. The question would be, how do you fit that in with your business, international business? It's a relief and a release to me. 5 years ago, before COVID, there's not a chance I'd have been able to do that. Not fully. But since COVID, I've been able to allow other members of my team to take on parts of the business in and around the world. So I guess why or how am I looking at LegCo? Why am I looking at MLC with that in place? It's the right time. I have struggled since COVID, not necessarily from a business point of view, but just for what decisions as an individual lonely businessman, because it is lonely, right, when you're making the only decisions, to can I continue on that track? I've got business in Dubai. Obviously, I've got the business here, and I'm in talks with a company to form a joint venture where they want me to go and help them in Japan, the Middle East, and America. And I was discussing my business with an MLC member, Dawn Kinnish, obviously because of LegCo, because I'm very close with June as well, just before Christmas, and she laid it bare of what the MLC role is, and she then said, with your skill set, there's an opportunity for you there. And I've got to be honest, Phil, at that stage it's like, okay, okay, MLC, right, let me look into this. And the more I looked into it, and the more I read into it, and as you could see, obviously I'm not reading from notes, but I have multi things pinned to my wall. And then going to the first sitting of Tynwald on the 28th of January, and having them been, I think they think I'm a stalker in that gallery, having them been to sittings ever since, the more and more I've been involved in it, the more and more I believe I can do it with the skill set, with the personality that I have, with the sideways entry into the system, with not being a known member of this, probably the 16, and I know that you've interviewed other people, but with the 16 candidates that are there, I'm probably the least known, and I have no connection to MHKs or to government departments or even government policies. I'm new to this, and I don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or bad thing, but I believe it's a good thing because I will come into it with a different view, but a view that from being that businessman that's made, I say businessman, it's from running businesses, right, that's had to make those decisions on my own, to then making critical, crucial decisions for what is a wonderful island, because after 3 days of being here, I did fall in love with it. I didn't run a mile. With like-minded people, but with different skill sets, with different diverse skill sets. I believe that not only is it the right time, but I believe that it's the right chapter for my next chapter of the book. Do I have the knowledge, the in-depth knowledge? Well, I'm talking to the expert of experts here today, so I'm not going to try and baffle you with politics. However, I've taught myself how to be an international businessman. I've taught myself how to run businesses. Some have been brilliant, some have been bad. I've learned from the good and the bad. And I believe that I can learn very quickly how to do this job because I do class it as a job. I'm not of retirement age. I'm not looking at doing something because the wife's going to kick me out of the house because I'm going to get under her feet as retirement. This is a next part of my job. This is a new job for me. This is a job interview today, just like the hustings will be. So I believe that through the history, through the 25 years of what I've done globally, and I say that lightly because I've done probably a lot more than I could ever say here today or tomorrow. You know, I look on. I've made careers for people that would not necessarily get a chance to have careers around the world.
And is that the sort of thing that we're needing on the island? I mean, obviously, government has famously issued its Our Island Plan and the economic strategy, and they're all talking about endeavouring to grow the economy. And I think every government around the world wants to grow its economy so that it can afford to pay for all the services everyone wants. Is that something you think you can help with?
I think it is. From a business point of view, you know, you look at decisions that have to be made, and I listen to the sit-ins, and you know, not one person in Tynwald is there to do anything wrong. They all want what's right for the island. Are they business people? Are they business persons? Have they built businesses? Do they understand what it takes to lose and to win? I'm going to say some of them aren't. You know, they're in there because of the reasons they're in there, because members of the Manx people have voted them in. Is there a business-minded person with the international experience that I have in either the MLC or in Tynwald right at this time, right at this moment in time? Peter Greenhill's leaving. He's, you know, if anything, I'm going to mirror what he has done. Right, wrong, good, bad. He leaves, you're losing that skill set.
And how do you influence? Members of the House of Keys? Because bearing in mind, of course, that members of the House of Keys are elected by the public. There is a view that members of the Legislative Council need to be a little bit less involved in policy and more involved in scrutiny. So how do you go about influencing people, bearing in mind that you're not supposedly to be directly involved in policy development? Well,
firstly, the role of the MLC is to scrutinise and to check and to be the eyes and ears of the Manx people. I wouldn't set out to influence, but I would, and it's something I would really need to do because I am an unknown quantity. I'm an unknown entity here. I'd have to garner their trust. I'd have to get the MHKs who are hard work, like from what I've seen over the last, they how they put in the hours. I really don't know, and I've got to say that every single one of them that I've reached out to has come back either with an email or a face-to-face. Every single one of them. And you think about when we started on 20th of January, it's been a very busy period of time with everything that's going on. So I'd have to gain their trust, and then it'd be a matter of behind the scenes chatting. You know, with my entrepreneurial thought processes, I think that there'll be ideas I could possibly put in front of them that they might not have thought of, that they might open their eyes and go, okay, or they could say, that's not going to work. So,
and I guess as well, with your experience in marketing, you'll be able to help in relation to government communication. And this is, of course, assuming that you're willing to be a member of a department. And that's a question I've asked most of the candidates. Presumably you are willing, or are you?
It's you know, I've listened to the hustings. I've listened to the hustings since 2017, so I know that question came out. I've also spoken to MHKs and they've asked me that question. And I also know that there's some people that go, you shouldn't be a part of the department because you can't compromise the role that you've come into. You come into as an MRC, you are meant to be scrutinising and making sure that everything to pass through is correct or needs to be changed. For me, and I think obviously, sorry to have bored you with my history, I'm a worker. I would, I don't know a 9 to 5. I don't know an 8-9 hour day. For me, for sure, if people saw something in me that would be good for the department, I would go. If you were to ask me what departments, Home Affairs and Enterprise would be the two that I would say, I think I can help, or I'd like to be guided by what you're doing now, and maybe then I can influence it further down the line. So for sure, I would be and would like to go into a department if that was the right thing and everybody thought that was the right thing for me to do.
In relation then to politics generally, I mean, you've been on the island now for 14 years, so 15 years. So you I guess you've identified where some of the problems are on the island. What would you identify as the major issues that need to be addressed, and is government doing enough, do you think, to address them?
I think at this stage, I think the government have a very difficult. I think any government has a very difficult task. You look globally, and I've done my research on who's right, who's wrong, who's working, who isn't. There's a problem throughout. The main issues here, obviously is health, massive. How do you deal with that? I really, if I had the answer for that, I wouldn't be sitting here, would I? But I do think that there needs to be everybody sit down and sort that out, because that's not one person's problem. That's the whole island's problem, and that needs to be sorted out first and foremost. Housing, for sure. I've done my research. 6,000 houses are empty. We don't need a person to look into what's happening with these houses. I believe that something should be done. Just on Strand Street alone, you walk in the evening, all of the properties that are empty, for obvious reasons, because the rents are so high. Is it a discussion to have with the private sector to say, come on, let's fill them for you? Because if you're charging 60,000 per annum, but no one's in them, you get nothing. So let's have a think, because the more we put people in the main city centre, the more we're going to use the shops and the restaurants and the bars and the coffee shops within the city centre. Border control is a big one for me. We're not talking about immigration as such, but we're talking about the criminality side of it. We've got great, people, or the police force the chief constable talks about the success rate of stopping drugs coming in, but we're scratching the surface. There's other ways that they're getting the drugs into this island, and the drugs coming into the island then causes the rest of the problems that we have. Over 50% of the prison, the 144 place, 141 people in the prison, over 50% are from the UK. I know that the UK have their own problems with their own prisons, but should we be funding £80,000 a year per prisoner? Where does the offence get committed? Surely it gets committed as soon as they pick up the drugs across, before they bring them over here. So border control is, again, Home Affairs. That's why I'd be interested in that. I think that's an issue. I could go on, right? I think.
Well, actually, sadly, we can't go on because.
Oh no, sorry.
Bizarrely, the time has zipped by.
Sorry.
But we do have just over a minute left for you to explain yourself in a reasonably short way to the Keys members. So, if a Keys member was looking down that list of 16 candidates, what is it specifically about you that you would want them to think about when they're making that choice?
Sorry, I've only got a minute left as well. That went really quick. Look, I'd come in with a fresh set of eyes, okay, with a pragmatic approach. I make things simple. I'm a simple guy, right? I left with 4 O-levels from school. I didn't go to university. I make things happen because I simplify them. I've got the real world experience, and that entrepreneurial spirit, trustworthiness. I've got endeavour to work as hard as possible, and I think it's about, and I know it's been used before, but it's collaboration. Communication 70% is through listening, and I think that I would listen to all 24 members and try to come up with solutions, or literally just being a sounding board for them to talk to see if I can then come up with a solution. I'm here to be serious for this role. I've worked extra hard because I've come in late to the process. I want this position. I want to be a member of the LegCo, and I believe that over 5 or 10 years that I will be a part of the island plan, and I can look back on my whole career and say, I was a part of that.
That was businessman Barry Duncan. Over the next week or so, we hope to hear from all the LegCo candidates, so you can take your pick. If you are standing, please get in touch with Phil Gorn at manxradio.com so we can arrange an interview. Don't forget this programme is available as a podcast on Manx Radio's website. After the news, the second part of this agenda special with Mark Cleater.